Welcome back, everyone. It has been a minute since we've done an update here. No, that building is not permanent. That is just sitting there for a reason. I haven't, unfortunately, run this in quite a bit of time because the only controller I have has been set up in the back room where we're doing the new layout. So unfortunately, this project's been a little stagnant. As you can see, I've been planning some things out. I'm going to put a tunnel here for our road. I've been looking for how to pave the road. It hasn't quite turned out the way I wanted, so I've got to do some cleanup here. That all is coming in a coming video because I am a proper, psychopath. We've been looking for a layout that we can more reasonably put upstairs and have fun with on the daily. And the wife and I got talking about maybe building a Z-scale layout in a coffee table or something like that. And it was just a passing thought. Nothing really came of it until I was at the trains.com warehouse sale. This is it's very handmade. It's extremely handmade. It is definitely not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. As you can see, there is some damage right here that I've started repairing, but it is a proper coffee table. In fact, let me go put one of the leaves on it. As stated, it is a proper coffee table. It's got two of these leaves. They are tempered glass. Best I can tell, at least. They seem to be tempered glass. If they're not, they're pretty darn close. And the wood, it's just pine. It's not anything special, but I am going to stain it. It doesn't match anything I have upstairs. I have all dark wood upstairs. So we are going to stain it. We're going to do a little bit of work on this. They say it isn't running. It's got a DCC setup, which, honestly, I hate to say, I may just strip and put on the new layout, and then just put some regular DCC or regular DC controllers on this. I have a DC controller from my son's Thomas setup, and I'll be honest, that probably would be more than just adequate for this. We don't need anything special. The buildings are all like plaster or something of that nature, and a lot of them have been falling apart. They do have some standard plastic buildings over here, and a lot of these are in a pretty decent state of just meh and or disrepair. Like this one just, thankfully it's tethered by a wire there, but it does come up. Also, you will see there's some very nice lighting here, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off and just put a nice LED strip on here so it's very well illuminated. It's got a ton of potential, and the best part is they're just chilling for $200. I mean, the DCC controller alone is $200. So, come on. This is a no-brainer. This was a must-have item, and thankfully the wife is super cool with it. So this is going to be our new upstairs coffee table. Not my first end scale, well, my first end scale layout. We started the diorama and I never finished it or whatever. But right now it is down here in the basement, and until I get a few things fixed. So case in point, down here at the bottom you'll see this one's not so bad, but there's clearly some water damage there. On the other side, the feet are very, very badly fragmented. So, sorry, a little bit of a, I don't know what that's stained from. It's a basement, guys. The hardware is just very, very basic. The controller here for the switches is very, very basic. I'll be honest, like I said, this is just a great starting point. Clearly somebody, put a lot of love and dedication into this. And I believe they said it came from an estate sale. I'm not 100% certain. But, we're going to show this thing a lot of love and a lot of care and get it back to, I guess, modern specs. We are going to update it a little bit. Now, it did come with some trains, which is actually pretty awesome. So we do have some trains. We have a very nice 280 steam engine. Very cool. And these are all in pretty good shape. They come with a tender. We, of course, have the obligatory caboose. This is, oops, you can see it there. It does have the updated coupler on it, but I didn't see the updated coupler on the engine, so I'm wondering what's up with that. Passenger cars. More passenger cars. That looks like more like a dining car. And an RPO. So, pretty cool stuff. Once again, for $200, this is the absolute coolest. So, today, my goal is to start ballasting and start rewiring and get this thing up and running. As you can see, I've started repairing some of the wood over here. It's got a really nice little inlay here that, it looks okay when the door's open, but when the door is shut, if I get this glass all nicely cleaned up, it'll look absolutely gorgeous. And there's just an absolutely insane amount of potential. So we'll have some updates on this coming up really soon. So as you note here, there is a certain amount of track laid down already. It was just nailed in, and
I'm not a big fan of that. I kind of wanted the more ballasted track. I wanted something that looks a little bit better. And these switches have these external switch machines on them, which it is what it is. I'm going to try to swap this out and do something a little more discreet. So I bought these tortoise switches. We're going to get a remote mounting kit for it and try to mount it underneath. And so plan this out, remove the external switch, drill the holes for this, and then ballast the track and get this looking, as good as we want to. You'll notice there's a little kind of a bubble, so to speak, in the roadbed. I'm not sure what kind of roadbed this is. It is cork, but it doesn't feel like other cork roadbed. Not sure what they did with it, but it'll be fairly easy to remove. We'll just kind of clean that up, and then the ballast will cover, whatever it is. So that is going to be really the next step of this process, is preparing it for the tortoise switches. So here on the workbench, I'm just removing the switch machine. I really don't have any need for this external switch machine. In fact, the one thing that kind of did come to my attention is there is no center drill point for the tortoise switch. So I'm having to use my pin vise to kind of create that opening so that we can stick the tortoise switch up through the center and hide all that. Now, the other thing is I'm trying to use as much of the track that came with this as possible. We are going to simulate a track that is much older, so having the rail joiners isn't going to be, a huge, offset in quality. But I do want to cut off as many of these excess pieces and all that as I can. So we're going to take my little nippers here and just trim up all of these excess pieces on the outside. And then when we ballast it in, the ballast will probably cover up most of where the ties would otherwise be, so we'll just kind of play it by ear. But these are just some old nippers I have. They're definitely marred up and they're not perfect, so they're great for a job like this. So here comes the test fitting. Now in this situation, what I need to do is I need to get the switch perfectly aligned, perfectly where I want it to be. And then I'm going to have to start marking stuff. So I need to make sure that when I drill my hole, because I've got to drill a 1/4 inch sized hole straight through the base of this for the tortoise switch to do its job. So I need to have this aligned perfectly where I want it. So in the tortoise switch, it's got a little arm that's going to come up through the base of this that will actually trigger the switch to move. And so once I have everything pinned down and the track is held in position, then I'm going to use my pin vise to kind of mark on the cork where I want my final hole to be. So we're going to take the pin vise, kind of drive it down through that hole we just made, and then just make the smallest possible mark in... As the size of the mark really doesn't matter, but the pin vise makes a really small hole. So we're going to just drill this out. There we go. And then once I take the pins up, it should make a mark. Perfectly positioned for the tortoise switch's larger hole. So you can see a little bit of a mark there. I'm just widening it now, and then I'm going to come in with the drill and we'll mark it off with a push pin, and then I'll come in with the drill and I'll actually be able to tell exactly where we need that hole.
So now that we have this marked, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little more apparent. Now I'm going to take an 1/8 inch bit and just try to get through the wood. Okay, 1/8 inch bit. Now we can work up to our 1/4 inch bit. I do want to go slowly
So once everything has been drilled, everything looks good, we'll go ahead and just liberate the frogs from the tape here. Unfortunately, I didn't realize my knife was so dull here, but it is what it is. It doesn't need a super sharp knife, but that was a bit more of a struggle than I expected. Then I used some of the tape to just clean up a lot of the shrapnel around. Really not that big of a deal. And it just saves me having to break out the vacuum. And then we test fit the track, and now I do need to trim up the corks. That's going to be the next piece of this, because once the track goes in, then we start ballasting. So we need to make sure everything's perfect at this point. You will notice that I have insulated rail joiners here. That's because the outer track I'm going to have on a separate loop. We will have a...
Now, sadly, I'm all out of liquid nails at the moment, and I'm impatient. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little ballast down here. I'm going to wiggle these back and forth so that we get the ballast through them. Should probably get a toothpick for this as well, but I'm not that smart. And try to get up to about here and see if that will hold this down. In theory, we should only need the ballast to hold it in theory. We'll see how that works out. So next we're just going to take our 70% alcohol mix, this handy dandy spray bottle, and we're just going to gently mist. I said gently and it wasn't very gentle, but you get the idea. Now you do that to break the surface tension of all the rocks, otherwise this next step will not work. Trust me. Looks like a regular vial of Elmer's glue, and it is, but it's half full of glue and half full of water. Shake it really well. Now, normally I do this with HO, so if this is too much, I'll need to get an eyedropper, but let's just take a look and see here. Now, I'm going to spread it pretty liberally, only because I want this to also hold the track down. So I'm going to be a little heavy-handed with my glue, so please forgive me.
One eternity later.
Because finding a sunny day in Georgia in an afternoon on a weekend that's not insanely humid is impossible, I've been doing a lot of this work in my basement. And I apologize, the basement is a disaster right now, but that's because it's my workspace. I am just trying to get as much done here as I can before I have to move this outside to get some of the sanding done. Now, this is kind of a midway point. I got a little bit done, and you'll see I've started the staining. I'm not sold on the legs. I think the legs are going to need a little bit of extra work. I probably will have to replace them altogether, but this gives you a decent idea of what the stain is going to look like once it dries and once everything's good to go. There is some overlapping and things like that. A lot of that came out in the sanding. I'm also going to polyurethane this. Plus, the stain is still a little bit tacky here, so it's going to dry and soak into the wood and what have you. But the biggest process of this was just getting it sanded down and getting it fairly even. It's not perfect. So the corners are all done by hand. I hate to admit I did not do them with the router. I should have, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results. Once again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It is handmade, and it's going to look handmade. But you know what? It's already looking significantly better than it was before.
So I finally had a day with relatively only moderate burning, searing heat and 7,000% humidity. Take a look at what we've done so far. Not half bad. This is the side that was really badly split. And after sanding and working on it a little bit, it doesn't look half bad. So now we just have to even out this side and that side, and yeah, we'll see where we're at. All right, so one little update. I am handheld. I don't have the gimbal on me right now, so it's going to be a little wobbly. You can see this is badly just bowed right here. In fact, this right here is pretty close to level. That's how much material I've had to take it off to just make it close. You see it's just it's only somewhat close. I've been working at this hard. I hit it with the hand sander, with the little palm sander, and I need something more heavy duty, so I've got out the belt sander. And even then, hitting this for 10 minutes, this is all the more I've gotten off. Now, admittedly, getting through this polyurethane layer hasn't been easy. Once I'm through that, it is pretty good to go, and once I have this flush, then I'll stain that side. I got the other sides pretty well stained. Yeah, work continues.
So I have all 4 sides. What I had to do is because of the sheer size of this, and because of how much went into the staining, I had to cover it up, and I had to move it inside and outside and inside and outside and tip it up one way and tip it back the other way. This is the moment of truth. It could be really bad under here, or it could look exactly the same. This is Schrodinger's layout at this point. So I'm just going to pull everything off as cleanly as I can. And so far, whether or not the ballast and the glue alone held is going to be the biggest test here. If it did not, back to the drawing board, and I'll have a lot of cleanup to do. But it looks like everything held. So as we zoom in closer here, we see that the ballast did hold perfectly, exactly like I thought it would. I have a tiny bit of cleanup to do on the ballast, but a lot of that was probably detail work I'd have to do anyway. Probably something that just happened when I was ballasting in the first place. No real extra damage. Everything looks exactly like it did before. So, yeah, all said and done. I'm extremely happy. This first pass, the switch looks really good. I did test it. The switch is a little sticky. I'm going to have to do a little bit of detail work to fix that, but it is what it is. So far, so good. Now comes the fun part. I just got to ballast the rest of the track, lay the rest of the track out, and wire it. And maybe by the next big update, we'll actually have electricity flowing and we can run some trains. You can see this is what the stain kind of looks like. It doesn't look half bad. Sorry, the lighting's a bit garbage, but that's just lighting my basement. The stain turned out pretty well. There are some streaks, there are some lines, but, you know, considering everything I had to do, I'm not terribly mad about it. The legs I will probably have to replace the legs, unfortunately. That is what it is. I couldn't get all the polyurethane off the legs, and it was thick in places, so I'll probably just order a couple of 4x4s and just cut new legs and stain those separately. But all said and done, very happy. So I suppose that concludes part 1. Let me know what you guys think. I am extremely happy so far, but I've got a lot of work to do. Stay tuned for part 2. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll be back with more of the N-Scale Coffee Table coming up really soon.